Hey Pat, less than 20 games left. Throughout your career, what have you found is the best way to approach kind of the last stretch of the season?
I would say more mental focus. And at the end of the season, it's interesting, right? Because you got teams fighting for playoff spots. You got teams that know they're not going to make the playoffs, start get eliminated. So you got guys in all different mindsets. But for us, like this is the time where you start to get excited and you start to want to make sure that you're locking in mentally, physically, and then as a team to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position to where we're playing our best basketball at the end of the year. So I think for us, as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, you'll start seeing excitement grow and grow. Now, granted, we have to make sure that we don't get too excited for the playoffs and overlook what 17 games ahead or whatever it is. So, we'll still try to take it one game at a time, but I think it's an exciting time.
And then, other than obvious reasons, how nice was it just to have Giannis back on the floor?
Yeah, the MVP of the league always helps out there. It's something that, I think we've tried to make sure that we had his back when he was out, but having him out there is great because then he has our back. And I mean that literally. Yeah, offensively, defensively, whatever it is, he's always there to help make things a little bit easier, and it makes us that much better of a team, obviously.
Last quick one for you because I want to give everybody else a shot here. Giannis, after the game, said, "I'm just coming in to help." And I just thought that was wild coming from him. Can you just speak to how humble he is?
Yeah, I mean, he works hard. I've said it in the past. He's the hardest working guy that I've seen. Like guys like him, and I always put Dame in that category. I was fortunate to play with both of them, but Giannis is the MVP of the league, but he works like he's a rotational guy, and I think that just speaks to the character that he has. And then when you're hanging around with him in the locker room, and when he makes comments like that, you just know that he's really here to try to win games. He doesn't really care about himself. He cares about the team. He puts the team first, and he's a fun guy to be around, whether he's playing or not. He brings that energy. He brings that juice, and he's somebody that I'd go to war with every day of the week.
Eric Name.
Hey, Pat. At the end of the third quarter, I believe it was, PJ face guarded Lou Will and then switched, and you guys got a shot clock violation. I believe you were on the floor with him at the time, and maybe it was the end of the second quarter, but alas. With him, when you watch PJ, like, do you know what he's going to do? Because on that play, he went from a face guard to a switch, and I didn't see it coming. I had no idea. I don't think Kevin Huerter had any idea that it was coming. Like, as you've gotten to know PJ here, like, do you know what he's going to do defensively when he is kind of that just like ball of energy, or kind of how does that work?
I think it's a balance. I think, the face guard, I don't necessarily know he's going to face guard, but he's going to guard his guy. But what I've found most pleasant about playing with him is the level of communication he has. So, like, him and I out there on the floor, we might be on opposite sides of the floor, but we're talking back and forth. I know if he's going to go. He knows if I'm going to go as far as a help defender. We can kind of mix it up. We can always red. We're two guys that can guard in multiple different positions. And so playing with him and hearing his voice and being able to communicate back and forth with him has been awesome for me. I think it brings everything up to a whole nother level because of the amount of different things that we're doing on defense now. You need somebody else that we can kind of communicate with, regularly, and obviously his voice isn't, tough to hear.
In my mind, he's one of the preeminent switchers in the league. Like when I think of dudes that switch, I'm like, oh yeah, PJ Tucker. Like he just switches everything. Do you feel like he's kind of helped you guys work through that? Because that isn't something that you've done in previous years. You guys haven't done a lot of switching. You've worked on it a lot this year. Like, do you feel like that took you kind of like to that next level, like having PJ around with that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say switching, and I would say something he's underrated in is just, his defensive basketball IQ. Like, the guy really knows the game. And so when it comes, it's not just the switching, but the off-ball defense. Like I said, he'll rotate over if he's guarding a non-shooter. He knows the personnel as well as anybody, and him and I talk about the different guys that we're guarding and make sure that, we know who can help, who can't help, who's going to stay home, who's not. But, the switching and the on-ball stuff is what everyone sees, and it's there, it's obvious. It's something I want to make sure he gets credit for. But that off-ball stuff that I think goes a little bit under the radar is stuff that is going to really bring us to that next level.
Thank you.
Darius Joshua.
Hey, Pat, I'm wondering after that extended stretch on the road there, how nice is it just to be back home, have a shoot around, have practice, those kind of opportunities now?
It's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different season. It's an unprecedented season, but it's one of those things where it's nice to be back home. It's nice, to see familiar faces, to be around the city of Milwaukee, to see fans as you're driving around. You're obviously the neighborhoods and you're in the city. And, it's, for me, it's nice to, check on a few of my projects, make sure it's still getting built the right way.
Lori Nickel.
Hey, Pat, is there anything that's unique about how Bud coaches defense? We hear him talk about it all the time, but is there anything that's kind of separates him, do you think, from other coaches, or maybe the three-point defense?
I think it's the amount of emphasis he puts on defense and the amount of emphasis he puts on the two different types of defense, on-ball defense, making sure that you're taking pride in guarding your man, but then to the same token, having that 1-2 punch of the team defense, making sure that we're having each other's backs and that we're continuing to scramble. I think in the NBA, and especially over the course of a 72, 82-game season, pending the year, you have defense sometimes can get lost in translation. You see it a lot in the playoffs, but sometimes you lose it a little bit in the regular season. But we're trying to build those habits now for the playoffs. So the way that he makes sure he really emphasizes it on a daily basis, and making sure that we are scrambling for each other. Like, a lot of defense is hard work and communication, and not as much talent as you would think. So you got to just make sure that on a nightly basis you're dug in, and he does a great job of making sure we're ready.
Any guesses as to why he's such a defensive-minded guy? I asked him if that was his thing when he was a player. There's a certain mentality it takes, too, to be – you can't just have talent. You have to have the mentality. Any guess as to why he is the way he is with defense? Is it just an opportunity for him?
Defense wins championships. I think, at the end of the day, defense wins. And in the NBA, obviously, you have all the talent in the world on offense, and there's a lot of guys that can put the ball in the basket, and there's a lot of offenses, especially nowadays, that you see can score a lot of points. But at the end of the day, if we can stop a team, we put ourselves in a better chance to win. And the more times we do that, the closer we get to, the end goal.
Steve McGargy.
Just wondering, as you head down to this last portion of the regular season, the 1 seed and particularly the 2 seed are still within reach for you. How much are y'all focusing or concerned about your seeding heading into the playoffs, and has that changed a great deal at all compared to the last 2 seasons in terms of your approach?
Our approach hasn't changed. We're looking to, be the best Bucks basketball team that we can be. We want to go out there and we want to try to win every game. So obviously we've had stretches where we've done great, stretches where we haven't this season as far as putting ourselves in a position to win games. But for the most part, we're trying to win is one game mentality, but we're trying to win every game. So whatever seed that lands us at the end of the day, we don't really look much into. We just want to play the best basketball that we can, and we know the rest will take care of itself.
All right, back to Darius for one more.
Hey, yeah, had trouble with the mute earlier. I was wondering, this is the first chance we had to talk to you since the Bucks announced the vaccinations that the team did, players and staff. I'm wondering, did you guys get to 85%? And then also, what were the discussions like? Were there active discussions with the players about vaccines and just kind of that whole process?
Yeah, the educational piece was great. The Players Association and the Bucks as an organization did a phenomenal job just kind of explaining to us how vaccines, are the high-level stuff, obviously, but how vaccines are made and the differences or the similarities between this one and the other ones. And I think, after having a team discussion a few different times with the Players Association and with, the Bucks organization, I think it put a lot of guys in a much more, comfortable position to get the vaccine. And I think we've done, a really good job of obviously abiding by the COVID regulations that the NBA has put in place to make sure that we're all healthy and can play this game of basketball. But I think the vaccine just puts us one step closer to putting ourselves in a position to get back to, a little bit more normalcy in life.
All right, thanks, Pat.
Thanks, guys.